Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 255. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+, and also on the Facebook group Dumb SEO Questions. With us tonight we have Masataki Wasa. Masataki is webmaster of wasaweb.net in the UK. Oh, I forgot to invite Micah. Goodness me. Okay. Anyway, Masataki is based in Wimbledon in London in the UK, and he can be found at wasaweb.net. He's also a Google top contributor on the AdSense community. Tim Capper is a Google top contributor in the Google My Business community. He's an SEO and a conversion rate optimization specialist. He can be found at onlineownership.com. He's also based in the UK, about 100 miles north of London in Corby. All right, let's get into our first question. It's titled, "Can editing Yoast make me lose rank?" It's from Matthias Zothan. And he goes on to ask, "Edit Yoast on my WordPress, but not URL part. Can that make me lose ranking?" I'm not sure what he means there, Tim.
If out of the box, if you took Yoast out of the box without touching anything, it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't change anything. It's only what you do with it that can potentially affect anything. So if you took it, if you added the plugin and did nothing with it, it wouldn't affect anything in that sense, because it wouldn't, the standard settings wouldn't overwrite anything. The things that can potentially cause you to, pages to be affected would be if you started messing with settings. So for example, you went through the settings and indexed actual pages. So the actual top line pages, or what's classed as pages, index them, or index follow category pages. Things like that. So you may have messed up one of those settings. And then see how you would mess with your URLs, because your URLs, Yoast doesn't change your URLs. Your URLs would be changed within your actual normal WordPress settings. And for example, if you changed the text, the taxonomies or the settings, those are actually pulled from your actual main WordPress settings anyway. So if you were changing any of the URL parameters for the categories or the pages or things like that, those are actually, it's actually pulled from your main WordPress settings anyway. So it's not Yoast, it's what you're doing to it. Yoast on its own, no, it won't affect anything. It's what you do to Yoast, or what you instruct Yoast to do via via Yoast. In some cases it's all Yoast, or in some cases it's actually just implementing those settings that you tell it to do. So it's not actually Yoast. If you recheck your settings, no, it won't affect anything.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, if Massa doesn't want to add to that, we can move on to the next. All right, our next question is from JL Faverio. He's just taken on a position with an agency. He is. I like the way he goes about things. He's asking a lot of questions on the Dumb SEO Questions group on Facebook. And tonight he wants to know, what is your arsenal of SEO plugins that you use consistently?
I don't really have any plugins. I use quite a few extensions. What would be the one that I use 99, like almost every day? The one I use is Google's which just is a quick link to their to the structured data testing tool. What else? Obviously Google Drive, spreadsheets, Tag Assistant. Tag Assistant lets me know if I've cocked anything up on any particular page, in terms of if I was adding any analytics tags to a particular page, if I've cocked anything up. I've got an advanced Google Map search, which you probably wouldn't use. And what else have I got in here? I've got geotagging for images, but on a local level, you probably, unless you're working on a hyper-local level, you probably won't ever use that. And then the rest of my stuff is just, it's not a plugin, but SEMrush. So nothing sexy, unfortunately. Those are my mainstays.
Okay, did you want to add to that, Massa?
No, but I'm wondering, because it's mentioned plugins, so I suppose it's referring to WordPress. Would that be correct?
But I didn't know, because he said every day. So like an everyday plugin.
Yeah.
Well, so it's either could be, when I saw every day, I thought that maybe just your extensions, like your Chrome extensions.
Yeah. So it'll be a workflow kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But so if we're looking at plugins as if it was a plugin on WordPress, then obviously I use YOAST. And what's the other bugger I use? I only use YOAST, and I'll tell you right now. I can't remember the name.
But you don't want to use too many, right, on the same side, because then you might have conflicts, you may slow things down, those potential issues arise.
Yeah, so if I'm working with a site and a developer, I always have the developer code what I initially, what you wanted a plugin to do. So the only two plugins I use is essentially oh, actually, I've got three here. YOAST, and I came across WP Rocket. Now that's it's kind of a minify compression performance plugin. I was using, oh, it's been a while now. I can't remember the name. But the WP Rocket, it's a paid-for version. I think it's $20 a year, something like that. I was using the other one, which was fine, the normal free plugin. But on the latest update, and the CSS and things like that, it started crashing a lot of sites. WP Rocket overcomes that. It's a paid plugin, so they obviously have developers working on this all the time. So YOAST, WP Rocket, and the other one that I've just logged in and found is redirection, which obviously, if you wouldn't necessarily have it on a site, but if you've restructured a site, reworked on a site, or whatever the case may be, redirection is, helps you to, it's a nice, easy way to manage your redirects straight into your htaccess. So that's it. Another one I've used on a heavy, I'm just looking through different ones. Imagify, Imagify. IMAGIFY. That is pretty cool. Same again, paid for. I have got a free version, but paid for. I'm using it on a site that's got, I don't know, 600,000 images. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's great for. That's paid for. Not a lot either. I think that's 30 odd bucks for the basic, which is more than enough. Let me see, scrolling through a couple. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, I've got some to add. I don't have any WordPress plugins, but if he also means Chrome extensions, I've got a couple to add. Could be the fan, Tim. One is I find really useful, redirect path, and it shows all of the hops that your browser took to get you from one page to the next. I use the publisher toolbar, of course. Link research tools just have a little extension which let's just see their estimate of the particular page I'm viewing. Of course, page analytics by Google, that is invaluable because it's quicker than going into analytics itself. It puts a little bar across the bottom of the page, or the top if you so choose, and one click will take you to Google Analytics itself. But what you get from Page Analytics extension in Chrome is just a brief rundown of how things are going, so you can quickly check through your sites. SEO Quake, I use that quite a lot. That's a SEMrush extension. Tim already mentioned Tag Assistant. Let me see, there's one here. Oh yeah, the Google Web Spam Report. If you want to. Oh, Rob, how are you? yeah, the Google Web Spam Report. If you've got a competitor you can't budge who's doing the wrong thing, Google's got no way of working it out. You won't be able to act unless you take the trouble to tell them. Okay. All right. Let's call that an answer. Rob Mars is an AdWords aficionado. He's based in the Netherlands. He can be found at marketbiz.nl, marketbiz.nl. He's also a Google top contributor on web search, AdWords. No, none of those. I always get this wrong. Webmasters, Google Webmasters, and what else? Put it in the chat for me, please, Rob. And Micah Fisher-Kirshner is senior SEO or head of SEO at Zendesk.com in the United States. He's based on the west coast of the USA. And AdWords and Webmaster are the two communities that Rob is a top contributor in. All right, this one, we've got 15 questions, Micah. You haven't missed much. We got started late too. Ryan Callum asks question number 3 of a total of 15. He asks question 3, changing the URL file structure. He said, when I change the URL file structure from domain.com/index.html to domain.com/pagename/, should I do 301s for all of the old URLs? Yes. I'm new to this aspect of SEO and am lost. I have already put into fetch and crawl and re-index with Google Search Console. It would appear that I've lost the initial ranking I gained. To clarify, this is a fairly new site with little to no traction on the search engine results pages. Any feedback is greatly appreciated.
Jim covered it. Yes.
Anybody want to answer this one? I don't want you guys to fight over this.
I have the same question as David Ogletree. You know, why are you changing them? So, changing structures does have inherent risks associated with it. So there has to be a reason for doing so. And Ryan answers that, he changed these due to his opinion of them looking better than a file extension. So I'm not 100% sure whether that's the best reason.
True, but if you don't know, if you're not aware of the consequences, it'd be nice to change to that. The other thing too is that having a domain page name set up makes you future-proof in that it's very easy to switch from PHP to ASPX simply with a rewrite. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Masataki. It's made his previous site invisible. And the only way he can fix that is to do 301s on a page basis.
Yeah, so as long as there is an equivalent page on the news structure, there has to be a 301 redirect.
Yeah. Anybody with anything to add? Let me tweet that and we'll charge on to the next. Number 4 is a question from Chase Rayner on success and a healthy lifestyle. He said, this may be my dumbest SEO question, but it's something that I struggle with. I'm looking for advice from SEOs who've achieved massive success, but a healthy lifestyle at the same time. How do you be massively successful in this industry and Zen at the same time? I suppose the only person that qualifies would be Andy Wigglesworth, but he's not here tonight.
Well, I guess wanted to find what you define as successful, and also what you define as a healthy lifestyle. For me, something I would like, if I had to tell myself something, I would say, rather than working from a home office, rather get another office and go to that office and leave everything there when I come home. That's my biggest problem, because even if I turn off, you know, at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the evening, I've still got my phone. And if you're still messing about, you're looking at something, then you come back in because you wanted to check something, and then you check something, and then you get sidetracked, and before you know it, it's 11:30, 12 at night, and yeah, it's not a good idea. So for me personally, I mean, everyone's different, but for me, if I had to redo it or do it over, I would say to myself, get an office in the town, and go to that every day, and then come back. You know, leave your stuff elsewhere.
Yeah, definitions for what you of success, the definition of a good way of life, healthy, is going to vary depending on what you need. For myself, I work in a company that has Zen in the name, so there you go. No, but in all seriousness, it's going to depend on where you prefer to strike that balance in the end. Whether you want to work hard first to get to a set level, or get to be fortunate in other ways to reach the healthy lifestyle and success right off the bat. I think for myself, it's what I've found, at least, is the ability and the success that you make allows you to have more leeway and options down the line, where you have at least from an in-house perspective, as you know, having the flexibility, like where I work today. If I need to work from home, take care of the kids, take a day off, is there, and that option for me. So for sometimes for my end, at least as an in-house person, it's getting to a certain level and then having more options available to find companies that have that flexibility, the options that allow me to have a more healthy lifestyle than I didn't have necessarily, or didn't have the option a number of years ago. Right? So sometimes it's actually getting up the more success side of being in the industry, and then leveraging that to actually kind of have a more healthy balance. So it's just been something that I always make sure I ask about and look for when looking at new roles. and that's something that is important for me with 2 kids, and something I always try to like make sure of when I, say interviewed with Zendesk back in the day. Like, hey, yeah, this company actually does care about having a good work-life balance, and that was an ability to make sure when I'm reviewing and interviewing that I could do.
Yeah.
Another one which actually isn't really on a work-life balance, but when you've developed a kind of a reputation where people come to you rather than you having to look for clients, part of that, I suppose, nice part about it, or work-life balance, but for me was you can actually pick and choose now. So you get X amount of emails, in the week or the month, and you can literally decide who you want to work with and not. Now, I know that's not going to sound like a healthy work-life balance, but it is, because when you start out for yourself in the beginning, you're literally scrambling to find anything and anyone you can work with, working your tits off with everyone because you need to pay the bills, as well as trying to prove yourself, overworking depending on overworking to prove yourself, sometimes even losing money on the jobs. So it's not like a work-life balance. It's kind of nice now that you can actually literally pick and choose who you want to work with, rather than, we've all picked those psycho clients, absolute nutters, that when the minute you sign a contract with them, they're like this, and then you're like, oh shit, what have I done? So yeah, that's another kind of nice little bit, but it's not really part of the question.
No, I think it is actually, because what you're saying is that you have to know your limits and be able to prioritize, so you know what you don't need to do or don't want to do. I think that's what many people fail at, is in people are too busy thinking about what can I do, how do I do it, how do I fit everything in, instead of thinking, do I need to do this, do I want to do this, is it worth doing this? And I think when you start, people lack the courage to say no and stick with that decision. And I think that's been the hardest. I'm in a different area, but I think that's been the hardest thing to learn as freelancer, is that sometimes you have to say no, and you have to be able to say so confidently. And I think that's when you reach that point, then you start to think, okay, how do I prioritize the things that I have? How much time do I have free? You always try to keep a bit of time, sort of free time, as a cushion. So if something comes in, you can respond without straining you too much. So it is really, I think the most important thing is the ability to say no, and because you know what you can do and what you can't do. And when you overpromise, that's when you're in real problem. And I think that's the hardest bit to learn.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, overstretching yourself. We've all done it. When you start out, everybody does it. You say yes to everything. You say yes to everything, and then you're spending 28 hours in a day, and you're not sleeping, and then you don't even, when you do get to sleep, you don't sleep because you're worried about this one that you haven't finished that off, and you haven't.
Yeah, and one thing that you can do, just a quick trick kind of thing, is to think, how much am I earning per hour? Because when you start, you might get a big project, and the global sum that's been promised might be pretty large, or it seems large, But once you start doing it and it's consuming all of your time, and then you know, after a week, 2 weeks, a month, and you start thinking, wait a minute, how much time have I spent on this project? And then you realize that per hour I'm getting this much, and then after the taxes, social security payments, so on and so forth, how much do I have left? And I think that's one quick way of thinking about it. I don't think I'd be better off flipping burgers. I mean, if it comes to that, then there is something wrong with how you're allocating your time and what kind of projects you're accepting and how you're managing things.
Yeah. Just think, Tim, when you started out, when you first left the KGB, and you were looking after Russian oligarchs and keeping them out of the internet. And oh dear. All right. Okay, let's move on from this one. We'll tweet that. Okay, this one from Josu Sanchez Anelda, titled, "Should I write all the anchor text with the keyword I want to rank?" Should I write all of the anchor text of the internal links going to a page with the keyword I want to rank on that page? Would that help to rank it for that keyword? Or should I use variations of the word and brand names for internal linking as well? I'd like to know your opinion. Thanks.
Okay, so within your site structure, you're going to have internal linking anyway, which will be the same anyway because it's in your standard site structure, whether it be in your header or you may have some quick links in your footer. That's always going to be the same. So you mean when you say an internal link is so from an article on your site that references something internally, well, you're normally just going to link that particular section, whatever it may be, and it's naturally going to sound or be a part of those particular keywords, and you would link it to there. Now, you're not going to change the structure of your article. That may sound weird if just to fit an exact match of keyword, that's your money keyword. You can if you want to, but if you're writing an article on or 2 words that you're going to link to the internal, I wouldn't worry about that too much. However, if you do have the opportunity in other pages within the site, I wouldn't go too hectic on it. I wouldn't over optimize so every single one is saying view or pink fluffy elephants. I wouldn't have on every single page, for example, every product linking back to view more pink fluffy elephants. I would vary it within the context of it. So let's say, for example, you were on a pink fluffy elephant category page that was dealing with pink fluffy elephants with larger ears. So then your anchor text linking back would be pink fluffy elephants. So what I'm trying to say is it should make sense. Don't just stick to the same one over and over and over and over again, because you've got that in your top line, you've got that in your footer, if you have it in your footer, in your quick link section. So, you know, then you're just going to go into a case of over optimizing. But use it where it makes sense. So use it in context, if at all possible.
I think that's a pretty fair answer. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Nope. Okay, let's go to the next. This one from JL Faverio. It's titled Companies with Zero Reviews and Minimal Business Info. He says, any idea why other companies with no reviews and minimal business info show in the local pack above others with tons of reviews and the complete business information?
Yeah, so there's not just one. There's quite a few here. quite a few different reasons. So, firstly, reviews. Although they used to be, although ranking was quite heavily influenced by reviews a couple of years back, they have literally, it's too easy to game, and they've dialed that way back as a big player. Yes, it still plays a part, but it's not the be all and end all. It's only a small percentage now. So the next bit, then you would look at, so we've taken reviews out the window. Your next bit is, for example, citations, because you talk about links, etc. Most local businesses tends to be citations and the odd bits here and there. A business that has only a handful of, shall we say, authority citations, and what I mean by that is, if, for example, they're a lawyer, they've got a citation coming from the local law board or whatever. They're registered with the Chamber of Commerce. They may be registered with one or two high authority directories. So, for example, in the States, it would be the Better Business Bureau, and paid. I'm not saying just an unverified listing. And let's say there's one mention in a local online newspaper about perhaps you did an opening, and let's say there's a local charity that mentions you on their site because you contribute to them regularly. So let's say 5 or 6 hyper-local, great authority citations or links coming to that business. That would trump someone just randomly chucking out 150 to 200 business listings across like Yext. Do you know what I mean? Boom, 200 of them, job done. Those 5 hyper-local, hyper-authoritative would trump a Yext, random smash base of 200 of the frickin' things. And then, of course, you've got proximity. So, for example, I mean, it's quite hard to even, say, but because you haven't shown us which one you're talking about. But proximity to the searcher, and also were you searching incog, or, because that plays a part on where you're searching from, based upon your IP, or if you're on your phone, geolocation. And also you've got other kind of filters in there, authority filters, where Google, for example, if you've got a standalone barbershop in this street, and then there's, let's say, a complex next door with 25 barbers in, it's not going to show all 25 there. It's going to show maybe 3 or 4 in that complex on the same category. And this guy. So this guy standalone is going to have a better authority, over these 25 same categories within the same building, because Google is fighting to try and figure out who in there should we show. you know, and the handful that we should show. So yeah, it's kind of an authority filter. They just don't want, you know, all these crazy, stupid duplicates all over the place. So there's that. I mean, literally, there's tons. There's tons to go on. So it's certainly not just reviews. There's
Thank you, Jim. And if you'd like a précis of, or actually no, an expanded version of what Tim just said, you can read it on JL Faverio's question on the Dumb SEO Questions group on Facebook. All right. Anybody else to add to that? Okay, let's roll on to number 7. Pravesh Chemling Rai asks, GSA, I just had a brain freeze. What does GSA mean? No? Nobody? GSA, sir. Look, I honestly don't know this one. Anyway, the title of the question, GSA, sir, for link building. He said, hello guys, any one of you using GSA sir for link building? Just curious to know, since I am playing around with it after a while. I wonder if that was a link drop, and his comments were canned. Oh yes, I see Benj Areola canned it on the Dumb SEO Questions group on Facebook. So let's move on to that. Move on from that, I should say. I'm having a bad trot tonight. Matthias Zothan asked a question titled, removing toxic links. Can that make me lose rankings? Steve Garenza, one of our forum heroes, answered, don't blindly trust tools. Check the links yourself and determine if you want to keep them or not. There are plenty of reasons to keep toxic links beyond just rankings. Oh, yes, I remember this answer now. Go ahead, whoever that is.
So I see Matthias is also using SEMrush. So, right. Although totally use SEMrush, I use SEMrush, but I don't trust their toxic links, in the sense that I always check every single one. Dan, is that any tool, whether it be SEMrush, Ahrefs, Moz, you know, any tool is basically programmed by or developed by someone's understanding of what could or could not be, and they had to take random mass amounts of different things and say, you know, if it fits within this parameter, then we're going to flag it, and if it fits within this parameter, we'll flag it as this and that. So never trust any tool. You always check it. You must check it yourself. The other flip side is, even if you are going to, and then going back to your main question, is if removing these will cause you to lose positions for certain things. Yes and no. So the flip side, yes, it could. If you've got one or two borderline, what you call toxic links, that one or two from a pretty good site, but you paid for it, kind of thing, you know what I mean? But it's, yeah. So it's one of these kind of things where if you literally removed them, boom, yeah, it's definitely going to well, it's going to affect you. It may not tank anything, and it may only affect a page here or a page there. It all depends on where they linking to, where they're coming from. You know, there's a whole variety of things. You can't just say, look, if I remove 100 of these, is it going to affect me? On the flip side, in theory, Google discounts. In theory, Google is discounting the most obvious crappy kind of shit links out there anyway. So if you removed all of those, you may not even see anything go wrong. I've removed, just to give you an example, it's a local surgeon. They had an idiot SEO a couple of years back, just a load of crap stuff, social bookmarking, all those Zenu links, sleuth shit links all over the place. He had about 2,000 of them. I've just literally disavowed everything, and the site has remained completely stable. So my assumption there is that Googlebot knows about these. They're just absolute pure crap, and they've just, you know, just devalued them. They're not actually even playing a part in it in that sense. So yeah, but you can, on the flip side, remove some fairly decent ones, you know, if you don't check them yourself personally. And yes, that could maybe have a position drop here or one, but one link is not going to drop your position. You know, if you had 60 or 70 of them, that, and I'm not talking real trash, I'm talking maybe they were from blogs that you had paid for at some point. So technically those are toxic, but you know, yes, that may drop you a spot or two. But check them yourself. That's all I can say, is you need to check them yourself. Don't trust tools.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to the next one. This one also from JL Faverio on a new website link update. He wants to know, does anyone know how quickly the Google My Business website link for a business takes to update to a new website link? So David Cooch has said, he said anywhere from immediately to 24 hours.
Yeah, if, yeah, okay, so yeah, I'll go with anywhere from now to 24 hours, but just to give you some context on how GMB in an essence works. Any new account created that creates a business listing is automatically given kind of a certain level of trust, right? If you verify it, if you request your postcard, the postcard comes, you verify it, you know, another little tick. If you know, so every time you do something, you add a couple of images, you know, everything's maintained, you log in every couple of weeks, you double check that what's going on, you respond to a review, another little tick. So everything from day one has a certain level of trust. If you have maintained and looked after and checked in every couple of weeks and, you know, updated your attributes or not, or whatever the case may be. So let's say you've got a nice, good, even flow, and you change the site's URL, that should be, you know, once you refresh the page, it'll be done. So we're talking add it in, refresh the page. It's a minute, yeah, a minute. If there have been things made to the page over time, which, you know, let's say, for example, you moved business addresses a year ago or 2 years ago. You changed business addresses that were very close to borderline, let's say, you know, a virtual office or a Regis office or something like that, and your address went into pending, and you actually had to contact business support to confirm that you were at that address. Well, that pending is going to have a little cross next to, because they did something which you did something which they were not essentially sure about, and literally had to be manually checked. There's a little bit of we're not so sure, and then something like that, a human would have to quickly come in, double check the website. Is it a redirect, not a redirect? What's going on? And then it would be a quick manual to check. So in that case, 24 hours. So just so you understand why and how these things take a little bit of time. But essentially, all well in the world, all good, a couple of minutes.
Cool. Anybody else? I think I've tweeted that, but I'll try it again. Yeah, I have. All right, let's go to number 10 on your run list. Adding Google Analytics code to a website. He said, I'm getting conflicting reports on where to add Google Analytics code to a website. Is it just after or just before or, I'm sorry, I don't know what he means there. He's repeated himself. But yeah, go ahead, Micah.
I'm just assuming he's asking before or after, like the header or something. So yeah, you want to have it just before the end /head tag up at the top in the header. That way, and particularly you want it before. You don't want it like say down in the footer, and the reason for that is essentially that if your page takes too long to load and people leave before then, you'll never track them. So if you're able to insert and have the code right away without creating any other delays from the script itself, you'll be able to better track who's leaving your site early and try to see what you can do in that case of how to improve the user experience. So the earlier you can have that tag in the header and up in the header, the better and more, let's say, more accurate it's going to be in terms of tracking all the users that are coming in and not bouncing, and are bouncing. You get better tracking for that.
Thank you, Micah. Anybody else? All right.
Well, you can always check it in Chrome. Is my sound bad again?
This sounds not bad, God.
Okay. You can always check it in the Chrome browser with the Google Tag Assistant. Tell you to put it in the head section. That's a special add-on you can add to your Chrome browser.
What's the add-on? I'll load that myself. What is it, Rob?
An add-on or extension for Chrome. Whether you place the right snippet and at the right place, and
the sound is gone altogether. Yep. Okay. Okay. So let's move on to the next. Patty Mantaloons asked the question: how many 301 redirects would you need in your HT access before it would start measurably affecting site speed?
I know where that question is coming from. I would say it's gonna have to be a lot. I mean, you're gonna, and by a lot, I don't mean a, I don't mean like a redirect that has regex and says, if it includes this in the URL, then redirect all those pages to this new URL. Usually servers can handle it. And most of the time, if I'm understanding kind of where the question is coming from, if they're telling you they can't add because it's going to increase the speed, you're talking probably milliseconds they're concerned about, which at worst. So I would say that, yeah, it should, for the most situations, it shouldn't be an issue. Even if it is, you're talking a millisecond or two, and that's where running understanding regex so you can reduce that load can be very helpful. Yeah. Wait, yeah. So.
Yep. Okay. Let me tweet that. Here's one from Anton Ivanov on spun content on your website. He said, hi, a black hat question. Actually, Anton, spun content, it's really a dunce hat question, not really black hat. But anyway, do you think that it is a good idea to use spun content on your website? No. If yes, no. Which one would you recommend? What do you think about the article scraper scrapebox plugin? Will it do the job? I'm sorry, Anton. I'm not making fun of you. It's just that spun content. It's just such a bad thing, such a useless thing that it just gets me down. Anyway, does Google know if the content is spun at all? Pick up your mobile phone and you'll see Google knows not only where you are, Google knows what you want, where you're going, and what you'd like to do. So given that much computing power, how hard is it for them to identify spun content? Which is sort of a pidgin English version of the word. No, that's probably the wrong thing to say too. Anybody else with a comment on spun content?
Well, if you're spinning the machine, then it's not going to work, because any text that goes through a machine spinner will sound weird. Because in most cases, what happens is that the machine will substitute certain words and expressions with synonyms, which doesn't make sense in the context. I mean, if you're paying someone to rewrite an article, for example, then that's a different affair. But then you have to ask a question, wouldn't it be better to have someone write good original content for you? So either way, I don't think it makes sense.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, you can when you stumble across it on a website and it's just gibberish. It's just, I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So, look, if you're looking for, okay, so I'm going to put my in the middle hat on here. So as an SEO, I would say, don't be a dick. But let's say, for example, you are the local garage, local mechanic down the road. You've got a website. You just don't know what to fricking put on there, and then you came across this spun thing on your web. Don't go down that road. You can even find some crappy writer on Fiverr, right? And you send him, right, this is my business. Here's someone else's who's similar to me that's actually had someone write stuff on his. Please write me my front page or my MOT service page or my whatever page on my site, please, and here's an idea. Even if he's a third-rate writer, that's even going to be better than spun content. So, there are still cheap ways of just producing some content. It's not going to be great, but at least a human freaking wrote it. So if you want to go down that, just don't go down that road. It's because you're producing rubbish. Rather, if you are desperate for a bit of content on the site and you don't know where to go, you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, whatever, even go down the Fiverr road and just get some third-rate copywriter to write some copy for you. I think even you
just cross your fingers that they're not spinning content.
Yeah, look, but at least it's going to be written by a human and not absolute crap. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, I've already sent that. Okay. Question 13, unlucky for some. Let me see here. What's going on? There we are. And Anton Ivanov has another question. This is much more sensible. This one is how to get Google to index your page as fast as possible. He said, hello, a dumb question. When you create a new post in your WordPress blog, what do you do after that in order for Google to index it as fast as possible so that no one steals your content? Do you add the URL at google.com/webmasters/tools/suggest URL, or adding every single new URL here is not a good idea? Or is adding every single new URL here a good idea?
Okay, so firstly, if you've got a fairly regular site that you update content on a fairly regular basis, you're putting content on 2 or 3 pieces a month, Googlebot's normally coming to, Googlebot's normally visiting your site daily, for a couple of seconds, working its way through. If you have also got your sitemap added to Webmaster, to Search Console, once you add that to your, depending on what your CMS is, but your sitemap should update anyway, so you've already told Googlebot. And then a third way, if you really, really, really want to submit that to Google, you can go into your Search Console and use the fetch and render on that new URL that on that new article you just posted. So yeah, that's that. Essentially, if your site is well maintained and it's regularly updated, Googlebot's going to find it pretty quickly. But if you really wanted to tell Googlebot about it, the minute you actually hit publish on that article, will then chuck it into a fetch and render in your Search Console, if it makes you feel better.
I see David Kuchar has just joined us. David is from the USA. He runs a company, Confluent Forms LLC, and he is based in Massachusetts. How are you, David?
I'm good. I kind of had a buzz that my name was being called. I see I'm on the screen, so I figured I'd pop in.
Ah, terrific.
Yeah, I know we've connected, many of us have connected on Google+, but I still swear that you know, posting something on Google Plus gets you indexed immediately and faster than what I've seen through a Google Search Console, surprisingly. I'm convinced like that there's, you know, you put your stuff in the Google Search Console, even if you're doing fetch and render, that you're added to a queue that doesn't always go immediately. Whereas for some reason, Google Plus seems to have a leg up on that queue. And that might not be the case. I have no basis for this besides what I've seen through my own experiments. But
I think same again. If it's a maintained account on Google Plus, if you just opened it today and it was kind of your first post, I don't think anything's going to. But yeah, you know, if it's a maintained account, I've seen a Google Plus post actually of mine appearing above the freaking article. so yeah, definitely.
There seems to be some sneaky back door, but it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, it may make sense if we argue that, you know, crawling and indexing, of course, are different things, and that when you have a Google Plus post linking to a page or post, it is a link, even though it's no follow, and in a sense that there is an added incentive for Google, arguably perhaps, to index it faster than fetch and render, because there is no external link pointing to that entity. If it's just fetch and render, it's someone going into his or her Search Console, putting it in, fetch and render, that's it. No external link coming into that entity. So perhaps there is an argument, and this is, you know, totally speculative. Perhaps there is an argument that because there is a link from a social media site, there is perhaps an added reason, urgency for Google to index that particular entity, even though, you know, it may crawl at the same time, or, you know, the crawling might be faster on fetch and render. It just that in terms of indexing, it makes sense for Google to add something that has external links pointing to it.
Yeah, actually, there is also the possibility that Google has established some means of formulating a trust score on the Google Plus account, and it helps it keep a fresher index if it can immediately trust a participant on Google Plus. And I mean, I'm glad to see it's still going, Google Plus. I don't know how long for, though. That's the thing.
Wasn't there a recent article? I'm sure there was a recent article where I think Google Plus came out as the most trusted. Was it most trusted, or? Oh, I can't remember. I think it was in the Times or something like that. Some company did research. You know, one of these big companies did research on all of them, and so it's not in terms of size, but in terms of the trust or the quality or the engagement or something like that. It had, you know, it came out on top. So yeah, it was interesting.
I think
that's because David and I are still there.
No, I remember that article, and it was there. It also talked about the dedicated fan base, like who you trust more, and that I can't remember exactly how they put it, but surprisingly, everyone was like, "Yeah, this has a very dedicated fan base that trusts what they read," and I think it goes back to the relationship underpinnings of how Google Plus works. I mean, the fact that I think all of us here on this panel. I mean, I met all of you guys through Google Plus at one point. You know, it's the same thing. Like, we established relationships there that are different. And maybe that's part of it, is that all basically factors into how Google Plus looks at the content that people with established relationships post. I don't know. Like you said, like there's a trust score.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. Does anybody have anything else to add for Anton? Okay, I think I've already tweeted that. Yes, I have. Let's go to the next. We've got 2 more questions to go. David, can you stick around? Cool. This one from Chase Rayner. He puts SEO after his name just in case we might forget. The question's titled Schema Review Markup for Review Sites. Chase said, sorry for asking a ton of questions today, but do you guys know if you can use schema review markup for review sites, and what would that markup look like? Product review, 5 stars product, equals name of product being reviewed is the question.
Is he trying to go meta that the review site itself is being reviewed? Like a compendium of review sites and you're reviewing the review sites?
I don't know.
I mean, you can review anything according to schema. I mean, you don't need a product to be reviewed.
Yeah. So let's look at it first off on. Yeah. So let's take it as if this was a standard e-com site. If it was a standard e-com site and that was your own product and you had your reviews of that product on there, that would be a normal product review. You know, that would be your normal product, and with it you would have, you know, you would mark up the reviews on there. If there was no reviews, it wouldn't mark it up, and if there was reviews, you'd mark that up. Now let's read this from. So that would be just your standard, you know. If you were reviewing a review site that had reviews from multiple, had your product, and this is what you might be. Say, if you had your product and you said, oh, on this site, our product gets 5 stars. On this site, we get reviews. You know, if you're pulling them in from multiple places, reviews from different places, including your own. Well, firstly, you shouldn't be marking up reviews from a third party for that product on your site. For aggregated reviews. So you shouldn't be marking that up for aggregated reviews. You can mark up the reviews, but not under aggregated, because you're going to then be having 3, 4, 5, let's say, different aggregated reviews appearing on your site. Googlebot's not going to know. Essentially, if you were thinking of, you know, having yellow stars or whatever, you wouldn't. Googlebot would be totally flummoxed. Your own product reviews or people leaving those reviews on your page, those are the ones that you should be saying, this is my aggregated review for this product on my site. If you were pulling in from the others, you could mark them up as reviews, but you wouldn't add in the aggregated review being 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10, because you are just, Googlebot ain't gonna know what's going on. And I think in there, somewhere in the guidelines, at some point, Google has said you shouldn't mark up other reviews that aren't essentially for that product made on your site. Don't quote me on that, but I'm sure I saw that somewhere. But in essence, if you just think about the structured data, if you start using aggregated reviews, you won't use aggregated reviews multiple times on the same page. You would rather mark up your ones rather than the others. You can still mark up the review, but not the aggregated review. If I'm making sense, I hope I am.
More sense than usual anyway, Tim. Let's call that an answer for Chase. And anybody want to add anything to Tim's and David's answer? All right, let's go to the next. This one from Daniel Barbour. How many versions of your website do you need in the Google Search Console? I understood that I needed HTTPS with www, HTTPS without www, HTTP with www, and HTTP without www. Now, someone mentioned that I should be adding with and without a slash at the end. Is this needed?
No. So essentially, the version of your site that's running now, that's live, your actual end, your actual end domain is the one that it resolves to. That's the one you should have, obviously, in Search Console. Now, if you previously had an let's say, for example, if it was HTTP on a www, and you've recently converted to HTTPS, then you would have two versions, and you'll watch one go down as one increases. You'll have two versions. But all the things that you have mentioned should have been taken care of anyway within your htaccess. So, for example, if you were using a www version of your site, your non-www should be redirecting to your www version. And when you convert it over to HTTPS, those would redirect to the new HTTPS. So your non-www would redirect to your new, www version, if that's the one you wanted to show. All of those others, you should have actually managed originally in the first place in your htaccess redirects. So you wouldn't need those. Essentially, if you were HTTP, and whichever version your site was running on, whether it be www or non, that's what you would have had in your Search Console originally. And now that you are into your HTTPS, you can also additionally change that to your HTTPS now. But no, all the others should have been taken care of with your 301 redirects in your htaccess in the first place. You don't want to have multiple versions of your same site running on different domains.
I'm agreeing with Tim. I think I said the same thing in the Facebook thread, that they should all be redirecting using canonicals and everything else. What was interesting is that, and the thread that I posted on there as a comment, people were basically saying that one of the reasons why they encourage setting all those different versions up is essentially to monitor in case there are site installation errors that they might have, and then using those to discover pages or subdomains or things that weren't being forwarded correctly. Personally, I've never heard of that method, and I was saying, well, why don't you just track that in your actual not your analytics, but your server logs? Having tools set up in your WordPress installations or wherever to discover those pages, those 404s and everything else that's being generated. But I guess there is a way to basically use those services to monitor for you, and people seem to be, it's I guess a cheap, easy, and effective way of doing it. But it's something I've never heard of. So.
Server logs, David. I think. I mean, I come from a period where that was all that we had before Google Analytics take it on. But I don't think many people have kept up with server logs. There's Webalizer, of course, but that's still available. I don't know if many people would know what Webalizer was.
I remember Webalizer. You had to run it, I mean, you had to have set a cron job up to render it daily or whatever you were doing. But I mean, I think if you're running a big enough site or a complex enough site or an important enough site that this is a concern for you, that you need to have, what, 8 different versions of your site in Google Search Console, then that dictates that you should perhaps be thinking to yourself, I also need to be looking at my server logs in kind of an intelligent fashion. You know, I agree. Like if you're someone that's just doing a WordPress installation, you should have no need for this, but you should only ever need to have one site in Google Search Console, which is the one set up with your 301s and canonicals. But then again, like I said, I didn't see the purpose, but other people swear by it, I guess. So it's something to consider.
Yeah, well, you've made me think. I'm one of those Billy Muggins that puts in all the versions. I thought I had to. All right, let's. We'll tweet this.
Well, Jim, if you thought you had to, have you ever come across? I mean, if you have done it before, have you ever come across at some point a reason? You know, like, have you thought, aha? Has it revealed anything to you before? I mean, I've never done it, so I wouldn't know. But has it revealed anything to you if you've done it?
I'm 66, Tim. My days of aha moments are well gone.
So in other words, you've been doing it and it's never borne any fruition or insightful information to you ever.
He probably thought over his shoulder, you know, like.
Well, no. To be honest, it has. It's often useful. You pick up things that. I mean, invariably, when there's the option to do something right or do something wrong, invariably you're going to do something wrong, and you know, we all make mistakes, but at least we can correct them if we know about them. And so yeah, I have found it useful. But look, yeah, let's go to the next question. Actually, I think we're actually on the line. Yes, it's thank you for watching time. Look, the viewers watching us now and those who watch us later, we thank you. Your participation makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again. But for now, it's good night. And thank you very much.